on a Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy bag. Which, yes, the meowing is my cat. That's Raven. She is making her presence known while I'm trying to work, as always. I'm going to start out with cutting out the lettering. Lettering can be a little bit tricky sometimes. This side is going to be reverse applique. So what I'm going to be doing is cutting out the middles first and then going around to the outside. And the middles are going to go in a plastic bag because it is important to save those because these are going to have to get sewn down. So don't check out the whole letter once it is down. If you are doing the letters, some of them are very small, like you can see the A here. Raven, honestly, that one's going to be a little bit hard to sew down, but it won't be too bad. As always, tape as you go. Otherwise, things are going to start sliding around. And you don't want that. Being very careful with the spacing of the lettering here because a lot of letters are very, very close together, depending on what you are doing. So we don't want to make the middle parts here between the letters, those spaces, too thin. The good part is the circles in the middle here of the O's are not perfectly circular. So that makes it easier. Hi, honey. That makes it easier to cut out. The outside's a little more challenging. Hi, Mom. Hi, honey. The outside makes it a little more challenging because it is more circular, but it's not too bad as long as you move the piece and go slow. That's always my best advice for doing this kind of work, is just to go slow. And to move your piece around so that you're making sure that you follow the curves. Not bad. I'm okay with that. Ends are much easier. Yep, I've done this quite a few times and I have a preference on letters. Because some are just much easier to do than others. There we go. Nice straight lines make it a much easier line to pull with the scalpel. If you were wondering where the scalpel handle that I have came from, I got it off Amazon. This was after quite a bit of searching. They make ergonomic scalpel handles. Who knew? Not I. But it has changed my life. The regular scalpel handles, the all metal ones, are incredibly painful to work with for long periods of time. This was kind of a necessity considering what I'm doing. And it's made my life so much better. I highly recommend them if this is the kind of work that you do. So again, with the little comma here that's kind of squeezed in between the N and the T, I'm going to be very careful cutting around it so that we can not run into the other letters. And still have a recognizable thing there. Fonts matter quite a bit on stuff like this, because everyone knows what Hitchiker's Guide to the Galaxy font do stream in an open lot, so you will hear my family going around doing things.
Hey Mom, look, I'm touching Goose's belly.
Leave him alone. You're going to regret that.
He loves it though.
Okay.
He totally isn't trying to kill me.
Goose is a cat, for anyone wondering. Okay, so we're doing pretty good here. Get this P done. These are all right, but got a bit up here. Going to, before I cut any more of that out, do the center like I said I would before. And again, these little inside bits are what's going to need to be sewn down in the center of the letter space once all of this is cut out. Doing reverse applique letters can sometimes be a little more frustrating if you're working on a small scale. Applique is much, much easier if you're doing small scale. For this is big enough that the middle parts of all of these letters should be just fine. The only one that's going to be annoying is the A. Just because it is such a small little triangle that is on this font. But it'll be alright. That is why we have tiny, tiny double-sided tape. I do little bits and pieces of things like this pretty often. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this before I make the final cut on the outside of the A. Sometimes you can get away with enlarging them just a hair. You don't really want to ruin the look of the font if it's very specific. Otherwise, if I was picking my own font, I can definitely curate what size things are. And we got another N, which is nice. This, there is no little dot over the I because it's kind of like a mix between capital and lowercase, which is nice. It's just a couple lines, which makes my life easier. Now, if you wanted to on something like this, because it does have the highlights here, you could actually cut around the big outside and then applique the letters on anyways. So you can have like a reverse applique shadow and then the letters on top. But I'm just doing the letters. There we go. No idea what that noise is. Alright, last one is going to be the C on here. I'm going to go ahead and tape some of this down, just so I'm not moving other things when I'm supposed to be moving this. Yeah, I was afraid of that. Hang on. Need to get this down. There we go. The great thing about using masking tape on this is that it will not pull or rip or discolor anything. I've tried using several different kinds, but this works the best that I've found. That is Raven next to me trying to get my attention again. Raven, what are you doing? I swear all the animals in my house get attention. Just not always when they want it. Hi, Rave. So, when you're doing letters like C or G's or anything that has an open bit in the middle, or E's are really hard to do sometimes. Make sure that you are cutting the right places when you go to remove the letters out of there, or you will cut off crucial bits and have to start over. Ask me how I know. No, just kidding. Everyone knows how I know. because I've done it. Okay, so that is done in large, friendly, helpful letters. Don't panic. So what I'm doing to make it less likely that I'm going to lose pieces, I'm taking the letters that I've cut out that have these little bits and putting them in the bag. Everything else is just going to come out. You can just trim it up. But these specific ones, I can talk, are going to go inside the bag so that I don't lose the centers, because those are important. So what I'm going to do is remove these from their lines. And this is one of the vinyls I have that the pulling will probably end badly. So I'm being a little more careful removing it. As you can see, there's like, if you look at the backs of some of these woven vinyls, they have, this is a marine vinyl, so it has like a woven back, right? Which is not considered, but it's made of threads woven onto the back to make the vinyl more durable, which is what it does. However, if you have one little tiny one to cut, like one little tiny thread, and you pull too hard, it can snag. It's very annoying. Okay, we don't need that. If you'll notice, once I get this out of here, there is enough space between all of these to sew between, which is important. When I went through the advanced applique techniques tutorial, I noted that sometimes you have to change the designs a little bit of images you might find that you're going to use for a certain piece or project. And that's why. So what I've done is I've made sure that I've gotten far enough away from all of the other lines that when I go to sew this down, nothing's going to have the chance to move too much. And if you have really thin lines, it will move no matter how much you tape it, because the really thin lines can't really be taped. Yeah, so we've got really nice clean lines going on here. I'm going to keep on removing. I think I'm going to tackle this C. C's are always a little tricky. But that's okay. We'll get through it. Oh, hiccups. Excuse me. I'm going to pull this here. There we go. A little bit of trimming left to do once you get everything removed that needs to be removed. And hopefully nothing that doesn't need to be removed. Like I said before, a lot of all of this is just taking your time and being careful. And sometimes it's, I mean, I don't object when people say, well, this is way too much time for me to take. And that's cool. I understand that. A lot of people don't want to do what I do. And that's okay. But I enjoy it. It's very detail oriented. It gives me a lot to focus on. Keeps my mind busy. I like putting it together like a puzzle piece. Because that's kind of what this is. It's kind of like putting together a giant puzzle. And you have the more complicated pieces especially. So, I will, as soon as I get this down and out of here, I will grab the vinyl that we're going to put underneath here. It's really, really pretty. gonna, whoop. Okay, good. Got to do the, and a little bump up here at the top. I don't think I quite got over that with the scalpel. There we go. Good. All right, one last one. We got our A to do. So when you leave the centers inside of the letters like this, it also shows you what letter it came from, because a lot of times if you're doing a lot of letters like A's and O's and P's and E's and I's, the center part of that can get lost, and you get confused on which one goes to which letter. I've also had that happen before. So I like to leave them in the centers of the things that I cut out, just so that I know, oh, that goes in the A, or that goes in the F, or the whatever. Probably not an F, but I know my letters. Just so things don't get lost. I have a little bit of cleanup to do here. I'm going to take my little tiny scissors here and clean up the edges a little bit. Going to burn some of it off here too once I get the big stuff. A lot of times doing the big stuff with fire just kind of just makes a melted mess. So I like to do most of the cleanup with little scissors. Keeping the chat channel open if you're wondering what I'm doing with the tablet in front of me, so I can see when people are asking questions. Chat is quiet right now. Y'all want to ask questions, please feel free. Otherwise, I'll just keep babbling to myself about whatever I want, which is fine. Makes no never mind to me. I just like sharing what to do. Okay, so I think, nope, I have a big one here. Sometimes me cutting out the letters leaves little stringies here on the sides, so it's better to get all of this cleaned up. Starting with a clean edge before you do any other sewing is very important when you're doing this kind of work. The whole thing should be cleaned up before you try to put the backing material on when you're doing either applique or reverse applique. Before you layer anything else on, you don't want stray threads or fluff or fuzz or anything else. I'm going to clean up this edge of the O because I didn't quite get a full circle. Yeah, and unfortunately that's pretty obvious. Okay, so what I'm going to do right now is I am maneuvering edges around to try to make it less obvious that it wasn't a perfect circle. Those are incredibly difficult to do. No matter how long you've been doing this, if you're cutting things by hand, it's hard. Okay, so what I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna clean up that end. The upper parts of the ends, or anywhere you have really tight curves, can get kind of mucked up. So what I'm doing is cleaning all this up. And then I'm going to get my lighter and I'm going to melt the edges so it gets even cleaner. I personally do not like seeing the edges of the vinyl that I cut before I put something else underneath of it. So that's why I get a little weird about trimming and all that. I'm sure other people might say that's not necessary, but for me, it is. I like it to look almost laser cut. I mean, I get as close as I can. I'm a human being using my hands to cut things, so it's not going to look like a CNC machine bumped it out or anything. There we go. I still have some manual cleanup to do, and I am doing this because I'm going to show you this vinyl that I'm getting ready to put underneath it. like to get it as close to cleaned up as perfect as I can. And yeah, that does probably spend more time than I should. But I think the end result is worth it. So, like the song says, I do it my way. Or I did it my way. Something like that. Yell at me in the comments. So, as always, when I'm using my lighter, I want everyone to know that speed is key. You should not just hold your lighter anywhere. Move it around real fast, because all you want to do is singe off these little bits that I'm trimming from all of the edges, which are just literally millimeters. They're not very thick at all. It's not like I'm trimming off even 1/8 of an inch. It's not even that much at all. This is just the little bits that are sticking out of the sides, and you'll be able to see them when you work with your own vinyl. You'll be able to see whatever material is under the vinyl, whether it's like fuzzy backing or a woven backing or anything else. You'll be able to see that when you're working. And I don't know about you, but it drives me nuts. So I do my best to get rid of it as much as possible without mauling the clean lines that I've cut. And so that's what I'm doing. Sometimes I don't always show this part. I kind of just move on really fast. But I know that there are some sewists who are following me who don't do this kind of work as much as I do. So I would like to show the nitty-gritty stuff that people might not know to do otherwise. So that's why we're doing this tonight. Because this is not a terribly complicated piece. I've certainly done more complicated ones. But it's a good piece to show just how much it takes to get to the complicated pieces. Excellent, excellent. Okay. I am going to grab this. This vinyl is from So Dolce, I believe. I don't always keep track of where everything comes from. That is not to be intentionally obfuscating, but I just don't remember. It's beautiful though, isn't it? I love it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut off the ends of the rolls here, just because all of these little, the end pieces and like little pinpricks that are there from where the roll has moved are not necessary. I'm going to clean that up a little bit because I cut that like I'm 2. I don't care how long you've been doing this. Cutting straight lines is not easy, especially without a ruler. There, that's better. I don't feel quite so ashamed. Alright, so I am going to place this here. I'm going to cut off a bit here. I am left-handed, so I'm sure everything looks a little bit awkward from everyone viewing this standpoint. But, alright, so when that's done, it's going to look like this. Isn't that pretty? That cool shimmery material. I love it. Okay, next, we are going to cut out petunias. Because if you're doing a Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy bag, you should have petunias. I've cut out several. And we're going to use this really cool, again, I think from So Dolce, not sure on that one. They're one of my vendors that I go to a lot. I might have gotten this one from a grab bag too, maybe. It's hard to say. Unfortunately, I have so much vinyl that I don't always remember where it all comes from. Most of it comes from my punk embroidery, but not all. This one's really cool because it's like squared off glitter instead of like circular glitter. It's really pretty. So what I'm going to do is cut out our little petunias here. Some of these will go on. I don't know about all of them. Sometimes I cut too many, but we'll figure it out. I'm going to use this one for the inside bag tag too. I really like this color. It's very pretty. It's kind of fractal. That's the word I was looking for. Fractal. Okay, so petunias. What I'm going to do here is I am going to cut out some of the center here. But it's going to be, if you look here at these, that's way too thin for me to sew as far as like a different color or anything. So what I'm going to do, it's one of those tips and tricks. I am going to edit the number of lines and I'm going to make it a little bit wider than what it's shown on here. So I'm kind of making up lines here. It makes it more organic because organic shapes are not even. So what I'm going to do is this. I will show you as soon as I get done cutting this out, but I am going to make the center a different color. I'm going to do it using the base of the bag instead of doing the like another applique layer. And if I want, I can make it white by just sticking another piece on there as a piece of reverse applique. I combine the techniques in what I do a lot. Okay, so there's the center cut out. I'm going to cut this piece out and I will show you how I intend to do this. Petunias are such cute little plants, right? I need to put some out on the porch this year. Once it decides to stop being winter-ish, it's like 80 degrees one day and it's like 40 degrees the next. It's very annoying. But that's the Midwest for you, I guess. Alright, so try not to cut my fingers off. Only come close a couple times. I clean all this stuff up after the stream if you just see me throwing things around. Alright, so come on out, you silly little thing. This one is definitely one of the vinyls that you can pull apart if you want to. It's not going to make anything terrible. It's not going to ruin anything. It's strong enough to take it. But you just got to know the materials you're working with, really. So make that call. There we go. Okay. So, this part I am not going to pull because it's small. And I don't want to risk warping the edges. Just because it's likely that when you pull a smaller area, it is going to cause a problem. It'll stretch or it'll break in a way that you don't want it to. Which is annoying, because then you have to cut another one. And that just takes more time. Alright. Hang on. Okay. Sorry. Got distracted. Alright. There we go. So, when you look in the center of a petunia, if you never have, they have veining going through them, kind of like a bunch of other flowers. Morning glories specifically will also do this. There's like different colored veins going through them. Now, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to put it here. we can have either the blue poke through, or to match the front, I can put this underneath. Okay. So if you want to do something like that, that's a perfectly valid way of doing that. And then I can put a center in here, just right in the middle. So all of these different colors can kind of meet up together and be fine with each other. And then you have more depth on the piece because I have to sew all around this. So it's going to look a little bit more like flower petals and the veining that goes through the middle. It's just a different way of doing flowers while using different techniques to do them. And maybe I don't end up using that one. I don't know. That's why I'm cutting several. Maybe it will be just a solid one and I'll knock out the center with a hole punch. I don't get too fussed about cutting flower petals unless it's like the absolute main focus of the piece. Like roses. Everyone knows what roses look like. So sometimes it's really obvious when you don't get that right. But organic shapes are much more forgiving of a mistake or just unsymmetrical cutting because flowers don't look like that. I garden as a hobby. It's one of my favorite things to do when I'm not sewing. And personally, I've looked at many flowers, and they are not symmetrical. Not even a little bit. Most of them are very unique and unusual. Occasionally you'll see something perfect, like a perfect daisy or something, but it's not common. Most of them are really uneven. Some comically so, but most just kind of, they stick to a general shape, but it's not like they're perfect. Not the way that we would, like, say, have a machine make one. Nature's just like that. And it's always really cool to witness that. It's part of the reason I love gardening so much. We're going to cut this out because I'm tired of, there we go. It's easier sometimes to do the rough cut and then do the fine detail in your hands because it's easier to see. You can see the lines better. If you ever lose a line on the front and think, oh no, what did I do? A lot of times you can flip it over to the back and find that line just fine. I don't know why that happens, but it does. Alright, I'm gonna cut this. There we go. There we go. Alright. So yeah, just gonna stick this over here and pop this next one out. I have more of these little templates cut out because sometimes I need a bunch of something, like flowers. Just general rule of thumb, things tend to look better in odd numbers than evens. I took art theory classes for a long time. My grandmother and great-grandmother were both artists, and they taught me that too. So, don't know why. The human eye appreciates odd numbers as opposed to evens when it comes to things like this. True facts, helpful art tips, like Bob Ross with a scalpel, which sounds terrifying, but what else? Alright, one more to go here. I think I might do another couple of the buds too, just so that we can get a nice different variation of buds here. So I'm gonna cut this off because petunias aren't really sharp. So, ugh, must be pressure fronts changing outside. My head is killing me. It's very annoying. Happens a lot in the spring. Ugh, I had nasty weather last night. It wasn't great. But no tornadoes, as they expected there to be. So, at least not where I live. Alright, let's get some more of these little dudes on here. I try to leave these kind of gap spaces in my vinyl just because sometimes it comes in handy to have little bits and pieces if you're working on another project. I have a lot of bits and pieces left because sometimes pieces don't need to be that big. Like we've got this, I could easily get more flowers out of the inside of this if I needed to. Keep in mind too, if you don't like the level of detail that you were able to cut out, you can make up for a lot of it with stitching. Just kind of freehand embroidering more complex pieces. Yeah, it does work. Okay, I am going to yank this one out of here, maybe, if it will cooperate. The buds are going to be kind of hidden, so they're just going to kind of be poking out to make the bowl of petunias look a little bit fuller than it is. So as you can see, I pulled a little too hard on this one. And now we have the string hanging off there. And that's okay, because it's just gonna get clipped right off. But if I was doing something more delicate, I wouldn't have wanted to do that. But that's why some vinyls can be pulled and some cannot. Because that string is the backing that makes it more stable or firm, as it were. So you don't want to take off too much of it, because you don't want things to kind of hang around not being supported. Because everyone needs support, right? Even your vinyl. True facts. Alright, let's get this last one. I haven't decided yet if I like that middle one though. Maybe I will just knock the center out and embroider. So it looks like I need to cut out one more flower. The blade's getting a little dull. Always make sure that you keep your blade sharp or it will tear instead of cut, which you do not want. Nobody does. Taking a little artistic license with some of the shapes here. Alright, so what I think I'm gonna do is get one more flower out of here. I don't think I liked that one very much. I think I'm just gonna knock the holes in it. And you all get to watch that happen live, because sometimes I make different choices. And sometimes I don't like the choices I make. So, just do it again. Cut out one more of these full flowers, and then I will take, after the string is over, I will take my leather punch and knock a hole in the center of these. And I will put the, there we go. I will put the little lines on here with my sewing machine. I do not have an embroidery machine. Everything is done freehand on this. That's a Juki HZL model, if you are curious. Works great. I can adjust everything that I need to adjust to do this, including the speed, which is sometimes glacial, depending on what I'm doing. So, as you can see, I can get another flower out of all of this things that might have otherwise ended up in the trash can. So that's why I am pretty particular about saving scraps. It just works out better for me in the end if I can sometimes just have a little piece of something, because a lot of my work is just little pieces. Eventually those little pieces become something really cool. Okay, yeah. So this is where it gets a little bit awkward for me, being left-handed. Sometimes I don't quite know how to maneuver things. It's like my brain doesn't want to do it right. There we go. There. Get this one out of here. Yeah, I definitely need to change that blade. Scalpel blades don't last terribly long sometimes. Depending on the kind of vinyl you're cutting. But the reason I prefer scalpel blades is because they are much cheaper than X-Acto blades. And I don't have to worry about extra expenses. Because literally a box of 100 of them is like $5. And that's why I use a scalpel. It doesn't mean that it's superior in any way, other than being cheaper. There we go. Ta-da! Alright, so if you notice, this is a slip pocket, that's why it's so much smaller. I have 5 pieces here. I have 3 full-size petunias, and then I have the little buds, which I think sometimes you gotta work with them a little bit to get them out of there. I think I'm gonna put like this. Now, last things last, I need some leaves. Raven, come on. And the one I'm gonna use is called Dill Pickle, because obviously it looks like a dill pickle. This is from My Punk Broidery, it's their shimmer line. I don't know if they still carry this color, actually. I like it though. It's got a nice shine to it, but it's not glitter. So this part, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna do this one freehand just because it's only leaves and little vines. Because petunias will do that. They get real leggy. Oh, hang on. I'm gonna put that one up because I don't need much. Okay, so how do you freehand? It can be a little intimidating, but what I'm going to do, these are heat reactive pens. Means they erase when you hit them with some heat. So I'm just going to draw a bunch of little leaves here and some vine work. Just small pieces, nothing too nuts. And using this kind of pen means it's less likely to bleed through, and even if it does, you just hit it with the iron. And you can iron vinyl, you just got to be careful and use a pressing cloth. Do not get cocky and stick what you think is an okay heated iron onto the front of vinyl. It does not end well. Ever. So you'll notice that some of these are kind of thick, what I'm drawing here. It has to be because we're once again dealing with how thin can we get it before it stops being able to be taped down, and before it just curls up and wrinkles and you can't sew it down at all. that's kind of like the constant battle with this kind of work. So we've got nice little cute leaves. Just so it looks like there's an actual bowl of petunias with real live leaves on it. Sometimes I think the little details are some of the most important. So we've got nice big healthy leaves. There we go. Petunia leaves in real life are slightly different than this, but petunia leaves, or petunias in real life, also don't come in sparkly glitter purple. So we can take a little bit of artistic license. Everybody knows what a leaf looks like. And it's okay to just kind of hint at the actual plant. Considering that this is Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, I think everyone will reasonably assume that this is a petunia. And it's okay to have little wonky ends and stuff on this stuff, just because it's going to be covered underneath something. This is part of the layering, is you'll have to swap between, like, sorry, I gotta concentrate for a second. You'll have to swap between the leaves and the flowers. It's just part of it, because we want it to look like the leaves are poking out from underneath, not just being shoved around the outside. Okay, so now I don't like this vine, it's too much. So I'm just gonna make it a leaf. Hey, how about that? Yay. Now if I was doing like somebody's like favorite botanicals bag, I would definitely make sure that the leaves were far more accurate to the actual breed of the plant. Because someone commissioning a bag on, say, I don't know, foxglove would definitely expect me to have actual foxglove leaves. Or something in a close approximation. I have done those kinds of bags, and they're very fun. For me as a gardener, especially. So what I'm gonna do... Yeah. This requires a little bit more concentration, so I kind of get quiet when I have to concentrate on things. Yeah, there we go. That's nice. Okay. Now I'm going to cut out the ends of the buds. Sometimes it is obvious that they need those. So I'm just kind of going to match this up. That's really good. I'm just kind of going to match this up. And it's okay if it's not perfect either, because again, we're dealing with made up plant. But what you do need when you do something like this is this part right there that's kind of pointed going over the bud. It happens in almost every plant. When they start to bud, they're coming out of like a little green pod, sort of. Okay. So when it comes out, there's like little pointy leafy bits that are almost always on the bud. I think that's important for realism. There we go. But as you can see, there's another one. So we can do that. I'm going to clip it just a little bit. Excuse me, I have hiccups today. So that it is a little bit pointier. And so we have these cute little leaf buds and leaves. I think I'm going to cut out one more of the little vine bits. I think I'd like to put one on the other side once I figure out how many things are actually going to be on here. Because you don't want to crowd the piece unless it's like intentionally so, which I have done. The delirium bag that I did, that one was definitely intentionally cluttered, but I still want to make sure that you can see everything. I think we can get away with that. So that works. Awesome. Wow. That is all the cutting out I am doing on camera this evening because the holes that I have to knock out here are extraordinarily loud and nobody would thank me for making them listen to me hitting things with a hammer. So that is what we have accomplished today. Our Don't Panic and our cute little petunias. I'm gonna knock the hole out of the middle of those. Thanks for joining me, y'all. I will see you next time. Bye. Well, if I can figure out how to turn it off.